What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube. And today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. Today I've got another kind of 2023 release that just came out. That's been out on Shudder and I think some other streaming services for about a month or so. I put it off a little bit because I really didn't want to watch it at first, I'll be honest with you, because it is a sequel in a franchise that has long since died as far as credibility goes, and that is why it is considered right now to be one of the lowest ranked horror movies that I've seen come out in a long time. But I'm going to be a little controversial because I am a lot more optimistic about this movie than some of you guys will be, and I'm going to deep dive and explain to you why. I'm talking about one that's on Shudder right now, and that is 2023's remake slash reboot slash continuation, and I'll tell you about that as well, of Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn 2023. This film was written and directed by Kurt Wimmer, and I saw that Kurt Wimmer had a lot of credits up online, a lot of things I'd heard of, Equilibrium and Point Break and Salt. I've heard some of those are actually remade scripts and not the originals, I don't know, but a lot of known commodities to this person's name, which gives you a little cause for hope to begin with. This movie is starring Elena Kampouris as Boleyn and Kate Moyer as Eden, and the synopsis for the story is pretty simple. Again, I won't spoil it. It just came out in the last month or so. Go check it out on Shudder if you're interested. Spoiler-free review here, but essentially, we're in another small town. We are not in Gatlin. We are in a different small town, but obviously, kids are going out and playing in the cornfields and disappearing one by one, so there's something evil in these cornfields. I will get more into the story as we go along, but you guys know essentially what the basis for the story is if you've seen Children of the Corn, the original movie, or the ensuing 11 other movies. There are now officially 11 movies in this franchise from the original, including all reboots and remakes. This was listed as a reboot and not a remake. There is another remake from 2009, I believe. Of these 11 movies, I've seen 9 of them. I have not seen the last 2 up until this one. I've seen the original 8 movies, and then I skipped the last 2 because I love the original. Like all of you guys, I'm sure you all love Children of the Corn, Stephen King's original movie based on his book. I actually think 2, 3, and 4 are decent movies. 2 and 3 in particular are underrated, not bad sequels. Even though they're a little more low budget, direct to VHS, kind of a little more CGI, they're not quite as sharp or as good as the original. They're a bit derivative and they're a bit silly at times even, but 2 and 3 and even I think a bit of 4 wind up staying pretty decent. They're pretty solid for direct-to-video sequels. They're enjoyable popcorn flicks to watch the movie with your friends with popcorn and drinks and kind of have fun with it. Some of those earlier sequels are not bad, but then you get to 5 and beyond. I watched 5 through 8 and I absolutely hated all of them, so I stopped watching before 9 and 10. But here we are on the 11th movie. Listed is that it initially came out in 2020. There was a 3-year production holdup. I think it was finished in 2020. Didn't come out officially streaming-wise till 2023. I don't know what the holdup was there. But I want to talk about the story because overall, my biggest positive, and again, this is going to be controversial because if you look online, IMDb's got this at like 3.1 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes has like a 13% on this. This was pretty widely panned, and I'm not going to widely pan it. I'm going to be much more positive on this than a lot of you guys are, and let me tell you why. Number one, I really enjoyed the story of this because it is a bit different than the original movie. And I'm going to tell you again, coming into this, I did not consider this to be a reboot or remake. If you're comparing this to the original, obviously it's going to suck. Any of these sequels, even the decent ones, 2 and 3 from this series, are going to suck compared to the original. You're looking at a Stephen King thing that was made for theaters versus a bunch of direct-to-video sequels and now a bunch of poorly made spin-offs to those sequels. So I'm looking at this as its own sequel. I'm looking at this as just a different cornfield in a different town like it is. The characters are not related to the original, but they do have reasons for being there. If you come in looking at this as a sequel in a different place with new characters, this might be a better film for you. I like the cornfield look in this. The cornfield looks cool. I like the early usage of the cornfield in this. And I like both of our 2 main characters. They do some good things with this story where basically the townspeople are they're in this small kind of podunk town that is not known for very many things, but they are known for producing good corn out of their cool cornfields. They're known for that. That's kind of their tourist attraction. That's kind of their main good that they produce is the corn. But something in the corn is starting to go bad, so the townspeople are trying to shut it down. But by this point, the kids are already attracted to the cornfields and some have been kind of possessed or traumatized or rescued from trauma in some ways by these cornfields. So they are doing whatever they can to keep the cornfields afloat. And the older kind of teenager character thinks that the cornfields are the one good thing about this town, so she's fighting to keep the cornfields alive as well. So there actually it's not just a possession of the kids movie that starts off with just kids going crazy. There's a little more meat on the bone to it because the older townsfolk are trying to shut it down, and the next generation is trying to keep it alive for the sake of the town, and the younger generation is trying to keep it alive for the sake of the cornfields, manipulating and rescuing them from their other traumas. We see kind of an early mass genocide in the film, which gives a couple of the kids reasons to lean on the cornfields to be rescued, and that kind of is what warps their minds into trying to save these cornfields. So you at least get a generational story here, where there's the old school town folk versus the medium generation versus the new generation of kids, and you've got a reason for the kids to try to save this cornfield beyond just being possessed kids. They put a little meat on the bone, and I like that. Another big positive here is the antagonist. I like Kate Moyer's character as Eden. She's not quite the Isaac level leader, but she makes a really good leader antagonist here. She does some badass things for this character. Are some of the things a little cheesy? Yes. Are there some moments where the acting isn't super sharp because there are a lot of kids being asked to do really over the top and sometimes even hokey dialogue? Yes. But I like Kate Moyer's character. There are some visuals that she sells well. There are some lines she delivers well. There are some shots that stay focused on her and pan with her as you watch her do things that are really cool. I like, for being a kid-led movie, a lot of these fail because the kids really stink. And again, there are ups and downs in this one too. But I think Kate Moyer in particular as Eden is a really good leader. You watch her have really cold eyes and cold delivery. And there's times you feel for her as a kid, and then times she can snap right into that possessed child thing where she's just leading these kids, and you believe in her as a co-leader. You get a sense that she can be dangerous. And that's a rare thing when you're watching kids. You don't often believe them to be threatening antagonists, especially when it comes to being up against older men and grown men. And Eden does a great job with these cold, fearless eyes and this badass, almost aloof delivery at times that you believe her to be not only a good leader, but dangerous to the older men in this town. I like her as an antagonist, and I think Elena Kampouris played a nice foil off of her. You see a lot of things on Elena's face. With the acting in this, you see her kind of wanting to stay on Kate Moyer's good side and not get too involved, but also kind of see the duality of it, right? Because the older men in the town, they're kind of the good guys in this, but also they're kind of annoying and they're kind of tropey, and you kind of don't want to cheer for them. So you kind of want to lean toward the kids, but the kids are killing people and they're possessed and they're demonic, so you don't want to cheer for them either. So there's not a ton to cheer for character-wise, except for Eden being a badass, but then you get to Elena Kampouris, who's the in-between generation. She's too young to be one of the old town folks, but she's too old to believe in this senseless killing. So you see on her face and in her line delivery a bit of the fear, a bit of the having to save her family, having to save the town, having to trek forward, caught in between these two generational things where no one's really likable. So between Eden being a badass and between Elena Bolin's character being the one that's kind of stuck in the middle, I like some of the character work there. Elena wants to get out of the town. Bolin, I should say, wants to get out of the town, but also needs to save the town and needs to save her father and kind of wants to save the little girl. So you get her being spread thin and pulled in different directions. And she does a good job portraying that with little things on her face. Again, the dialogue is not always the greatest. When it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's really bad. But she does little things with her face and with her voice that make you believe in her. And that's all you can ask for in a direct-to-video sequel. Then we get some gore. Again, when we get the gore, it's good. They don't always show a ton of it. They do cut away sometimes too fast, But when they do linger for a few moments, when you get a few frames, when you get some gore, you get pretty good gore. Up until, I would say, the third act of the film, when they start to go CGI, and we'll talk about that as well. When they go practical and they show you the gore, it's really good. It far belies an 11th sequel in a series. When they show it and then when they go to it, there's some good gore in this, and I wish they had relied more on it. Going along with that is the kills. But the kills they use in this film are unique. For something that's an 11th sequel, or an 11th movie in a franchise, they do some pretty good kills where you can see it start to happen, and they build up to it, and wham, it hits you. And it's really good. And there's a few moments they linger on that, and it looks really cool, and I wish they had done it more, because the kills in this go along with the gore. When they use them well. On to some negatives. Something that really gets negative for me is the CGI. The CGI, they don't use a ton of CGI in this, and I was really praising it until the third act of the film. And the third act of the film is where I think this movie starts to fall off, because they do cut away from kills faster, they do go more CGI over practical, and the CGI looks like crap. Bad CGI can kill a movie and can take you out of a horror movie and turn it into a bad schlocky comedy, and that is what the third act of this film starts to do. They use CGI, and boy, I wish they didn't, because it looks like crap. Also, tropey characters throughout. Again, some of the dialogue is bleh in this, but that at least is hit or miss. All the older men in this town are very tropey. It's very much like, they took our job, digga. It's very American patriotic, backwoods, hillbilly, hick kind of characters. Oh, you children don't know anything. This is our land. This is our job. It's very tropey. It's very silly. It's very caricature. If they had minimized some of that dialogue and they had cut away a little sooner from some of the facial expressions, it wouldn't be so poorly fleshed out. They were trying to give us more character background by doing that, but in reality, the characters were still thin. They were just tropey hicks. They weren't fun to cheer for. They didn't make for a very nice balance because they were just bullying the children. The older men the parents in the town are supposed to be the ones you really cheer for, because the kids, again, are possessed demons who are killing everyone. But the adults in this movie kind of suck. They're thin, and they're liars, and they're tropey, and they're cheesy, and you just want to see them get killed. So it leaves you kind of with no one to root for, again, until you get to Elena and Kate. The two main characters in this are great. Everyone else kind of sucks. And then my final con, which is the biggest con, which goes along with the CGI. I can't say what I wrote here. It's a spoiler. But you do see a full-blown antagonist at the end of this movie. You do see He Who Walks Behind the Rose in this movie. And again, this is what separates the early films from the later films, because when they allude to something and they show cutaways of something and they just give you a presence, they give you a feel for something. In the early Children of the Corn films, they do it very well. In the later films, they try and show you things. They try and add to the lore by showing you a physical embodiment, and that never usually works. And they try it here, and it looks so bad. They show you a physical embodiment of a monster in this movie. He Who Walks Behind the Rose gets seen, perhaps for the first time entirely in the whole series. You see more of this character than I think we've ever seen before. I can't remember about some of the later sequels, and there's two that I haven't seen. But they show you He Who Walks Behind the Rose, and oh my god, it makes you want to bust out laughing and also be sad for yourself for watching this movie. Again, you don't see him until the third act, and when you do, you went, oh, I wish they hadn't done that. They could have been very accomplished. In the first 2/3 of this film, they stayed away from showing you that character in particular. You just got some rustling of leaves, some good sound design, some good facial expressions from the two main characters. They set up some nice stuff by just alluding to things in the cornfield. When you start to see what's in the cornfield, and not only do you see it, but you see it in bad CGI, it ruins the entire movie. So again, 2/3 of this movie, I was really in favor of. I liked this a lot more than a lot of the other sequels in this. I would say overall this is still the fourth best in the franchise. Again, that's faint praise because they get really, really freaking bad. But overall, I think I fell victim of... I came in with very low expectations. I didn't want to watch this. I've hated the last 4 sequels that I saw before this. And it's kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre for me. At this point now, there have been so much timeline jumping and so many remakes and so many prequels and sequels and frequels and so many bad, weird timeline things and bad movies that if we get something now that feels linear and the story makes sense and it's not terrible, I like it a lot better than others. The Netflix Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out last year, you guys hated. I had it, I think, as my 13th or 12th best movie of the year last year because at least I understood it and it was linear and it told a story that I could follow. I know it's low standards, I know it's low expectations, but if it gives you something you can follow and it's not terrible, you can rate it a little higher because of that. I have the same feeling this year that I had about Texas Chainsaw Massacre on Netflix last year. So I gave this overall a 5.5 out of 10, just above average. Now that might sound a little high, especially considering, again, the tropey characters, the bad acting at times, the horrible CGI at times, and the horrible antagonist at the end. But again, at least the two main characters are engaging. They tried something new with the story. They built factions nicely. They used some decent kills, and they used some decent practical effects when they showed them. So I'm being a little soft on this. I'm not being as hard as you guys. But again, for an 11th movie where the last several have been god-awful, 5.5 out of 10 for me. It's probably not going to wind up in my top 10 by the end of the year, but I was pleasantly surprised compared to some of the other entries in this franchise. So those are my thoughts on Children of the Corn 2020/2023. Tell me in the comments below if you've seen it. If you have not, it's available right now on Shudder. I think it's on a few other services, but I recommend watching it on Shudder because Shudder's awesome. Tell me in the comments if you've seen it before. If you have not seen my latest review of A24's Talk to Me, I posted that. By the time you see this, that'll be last week on the channel, so go check that out and tell me in the comments what other recent films I should review in 2023 as well. Please like, share, and subscribe and comment on this, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.